The Jigsaw Discovery Behavioural Framework, if you're not familiar with it, it basically simplifies the world of human behaviour and communication into four kind of foundational communication behavioural styles. They're not rigid boxes or tests that you pass or fail. The best way of thinking about them is four distinct drivers that describe how we prefer to focus our energy, our attention, how we prefer to talk and to listen. So, as we've just discussed, and especially when we are under pressure, feeling stressed, the way our communication is interpreted, can be very different from the way that we actually intended. In chapter 1, we discussed when faced with a difficult conversation, the brain immediately perceives it as a potential threat, and access to our full cognitive, logical, rational thinking is impaired. When we're in that stressful situation, our natural communication style actually becomes exaggerated, and we tend to overplay our strengths, and that intention perception gap widens. So what I'm going to do just in the next few slides is just take a little bit of a closer look, looking at the using the Jigsaw discovery preferences to help us better understand that kind of the gap and how we can start to bridge the intention perception gap with our communication. And this is just a very, very quick kind of intro to it. Obviously, there's a lot more depth, but very quickly, one of our preferences, we call it the action preference, naturally speaks really quite quickly. They interrupt just to speed things up because they don't like wasting time. Now, under pressure, they can overplay that. And if we look at the third column, the column on the right of the screen, then we can see that under pressure, they can very easily come across as pushy, dominating, even down to aggressive and demanding, ignores feelings, lacking in compassion. So that's not how that person probably intended to come across at all. And very often when we realise how we do come across, it comes as quite a shock to us. So it's just, again, increasing our self-awareness, having that understanding of how our actions, behaviours, our words are likely to be perceived. If we then look at our creative preferences, so speaks very enthusiastically, goes off on tangents, jumps around on topics, quite a ideas type individual. But again, under pressure, when they start to overplay this, they become across as being very disorganized, perhaps emotional, very impulsive type individual, erratic, perhaps exaggerating the situation. So again, we can start to see how that intention perception gap can occur. Our green, our caring, usually they're kind of natural style. They're very people focused, very caring, very open individuals, great kind of listeners, etc. But under pressure, they become very passive, can back away from conflict. They very much can become quite dependent on other people because they have a lack of confidence that comes through when they are under pressure, and they can become really quite vague and come across, again, they bottle up their kind of emotion until it does eventually explode. And then our last blue, organised characters, quite measured and formal, reserved. They're very much into detail, analysing out situations. They look at all the facts. But under pressure, they can come across as being very, very critical, very cold, very bogged down in the detail, but become perceived as being a bit of a job's worth, a bit of a perfectionist. They become quite rigid and inflexible, or can be perceived as being quite rigid and inflexible. So again, it's another example of how that intention perception gap can occur, and just to give you that kind of flavour for it.